Hey there. So today I'm going to be doing what a lot of people are doing, and that's going over some of the new spoilers we got today for the second set of Star Wars Unlimited, Shadows of the Galaxy. I'm doing this mostly off the cuff, so we'll just kind of delve into the few cards. They're primarily starter set cards with a couple others. And yeah, I'll just kind of read through them and see what I think. So first off, we got the villain leader from the starter set, Moff Gideon. His leader side ability has an exhaust action that attacks with a unit that costs 3 or less. If it's an attacking unit, it gets +1/+0 for this attack. Honestly, the wording on that's a little weird because it's saying attack with a unit and then if it's attacking. But point being, it's giving +1/+0 to an attacking unit, which is actually a pretty strong ability. It's something similar to the IG-88 ability that gives raid to an attacking unit. However, or IG himself, you have to have more units than your opponent, and this does kind of just get rid of that requirement. All right, so to flip him, you need to have 5 or more resources. He comes in as a 3/6. He has Overwhelm. Not hugely relevant on a 3 power unit, although you can buff up his attack. And then he also has the ability that says each friendly unit that costs 3 or less will now have +1/+0 and gain Overwhelm while they're attacking an enemy unit. So I think the important part here is, again, the +1/+0. Overwhelm is nice, but this looks to be primarily geared towards creating trade-ups or using your smaller units to kill larger units. The Overwhelm is nice. It'll give you a little bit of splash damage. All right. So where do I think it fits? I think the fact that this is a 5-cost leader in green villain already has me interested. I think we've seen how powerful it is to be able to get your leader out on turn 3. And with green villain specifically, you get access to a lot of ramp, super laser tech, and resupply. He's in green, so if you play mono green and you get to play command as well, you can also get him out on turn 3. Command works particularly nice with him because it'll also buff another unit. You'll then flip this guy into play. That unit will get buffed even further and then have Overwhelm. That's pretty strong. In general, I think this stat line is solid for a 5-cost leader. It's a 3/6. That's the same as Leia's stat line. It is notably smaller than Boba Fett, but everyone is smaller than Boba Fett. And the ability, I mean, not to be slept on, I think +1/+0 across the board, or again with his leader ability, +1/+0 for an attack is pretty strong. I mean, even like Super Laser Tech loves that front ability. It now can come in and then kill a 3 health unit. I think there's a lot of different things you can do with this. It's looks to be very geared towards like board-centric control. And yeah, like getting that leader out, like it's a similar stat line to Tarkin. 3/6 I actually prefer to 2/7. It makes him a better barrage target because you can now hit that magic 5 with him. So you get him out, you barrage, you do 5 damage. It's much more significant than 4 in this game because there's a lot of things that just break point at 5. So overall, I'm interested. I think we're probably going to see some more things that synergize with this guy, and we'll kind of work from there as more cards come out. All right, now we've got the hero leader, Mandalorian. He's a yellow, a cunning heroism leader. He's got an ability, when you play an upgrade, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, exhaust an enemy unit with 4 or less remaining health. That's really interesting. I think we are obviously going to see a lot of upgrades in this set based on this. I think upgrades will be interesting, especially cheap ones with this ability to be able to kind of stall out. Additionally, we're likely going to see the rise of upgrade hate cards if upgrade-centric decks take off. This guy flips into a 4/7. You need to have 6 resources, so this is the exact same stat line as Jyn Erso in the same color, 4/7. It's a strong stat line, but 6 is much different than 5 in this game. There are a lot of leaders at 6 right now that I think have a difficulty kind of penetrating the top tier because of that cost. But this stat line is premium, 4/7. And his ability is when you play an upgrade, you may exhaust an enemy unit with 6 or less remaining health. So that's almost everything is going to get exhausted at that point, except like the really chunky leaders, and like we're talking like reinforcement walkers, star destroyers, stuff like that. And this notably does not exhaust him, so you can do this multiple times in a turn if you have a bunch of cheap upgrades. I think like a card like Snapshot Reflexes, for instance, seems just like really good with this guy because you're going to use it on one of your units, maybe kill one unit with that Snapshot, and then exhaust another unit. You can do that with his front ability, and then again when he's in play himself. I think it's hard to really judge this yet because there aren't a ton of high-powered upgrades right now in the set, but we're almost certainly going to see some more, and this looks like a very fun build around to me, so I'm excited to see what we get. All right, now we're going to start talking about the starter exclusive cards. So we'll start with Calculated Lethality. It's a blue villain card. Tactic: defeat a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less. For each upgrade that was on this unit, give an experience token to a friendly unit. First thing I'm going to have to compare this to is Takedown, because it's a blue 4-cost removal event. Takedown defeats anything that has 5 or less health. This defeats non-leaders that cost 3 or less. Notably, it says non-leader, so I mean, this is probably kind of backup in case they make a 3-cost leader at some point. But really right now we're talking the non-leader thing is not that relevant. What is relevant here is that it only kills little things, right? But sometimes that's really important. Like we talk A-Wing that gets wing leadered, right? That's often a thing you take down in this game. And this is better than takedown in that scenario because you're going to be defeating 2 experience counters on that A-Wing. You're going to be putting 2 experience tokens on one of your own things. There's going to be situations. Now, this is an upgrade-themed set, so there might be more upgrades flying around on cheaper units. Like we've seen sometimes like a Yoda grab a Jedi lightsaber. This is better. Takedown doesn't even defeat that Yoda anymore. This does, and then also gives you an experience to throw on a friendly unit. Overall, I think the power level of this is a little weaker than Takedown. Takedown can defeat leaders. Takedown can defeat larger 4 and 5 drop units, like 5/5s, 4/5s, where this on its own really only trades down, right? It costs 4, it defeats something that costs 3 or less, so unless there's some upgrades on it, you are kind of losing that exchange. But I think there are situations and there could be meta games where this is more relevant. All right, Razor Crest is a 3/4 Vigilance Hero space unit. Has a Mandalorian trait. We'll see if that ends up being relevant in this set. It's got Restore 2, pretty strong, and a when played ability that returns an upgrade from your discard pile to your hand. So it's got value. The Restore is pretty strong. I think you'll compare this. You know, there's System Patrol Craft, cost 4. It's a 3/4 Sentinel. I actually really like that card. This doesn't have Sentinel, but has Restore 2, so it's even though it's not going to be blocking damage, it'll restore that damage, so there's a little trade-off there. I think the being able to buy back an upgrade, it's kind of like it's drawing a card, especially if there's a lot of cheap upgrades flying around. We talked already about like Snapshot Reflexes. That's a card that could very early in the game end up in your discard pile. You buy it back. And again, I think the more upgrades we see, the more value this card can provide. It looks pretty strong to me. Interesting. All right, next up, we got Phase 3 Dark Trooper. It's a green villain unit. It has Imperial Joy Trooper tags. It is a Sentinel, and it has when combat damage is dealt to this unit, give an experience token to this unit. So this is a cell block guard with that extra text, right? The when combat damage is dealt to this unit. Cell block guard is villain only. This is green villain, so it makes sense for it to be a little better than cell block guard. Cell block guard doesn't very often survive damage. I don't think this will very often survive damage, especially not if your opponent has anything to say about it. I mean, they would need to have some really small units in play for this to ever kind of go off like that. But for any deck that was running cell block guard, and I run it in quite a few decks when I have Darth Vader, to just kind of like have a Sentinel in my deck that Darth Vader can pull out, this is an obvious upgrade to that card. And I think that alone kind of just makes it okay. And now we got Grogu. It's a hero cunning card. It has the Force trait, very important. It is a 0/5 that has an action exhaust an enemy unit. Now this is a really interesting card. I think of it less of a unit and more of this like static removal. 0/5 is really annoying to deal with, and on top of that, it can lock down a unit every turn. So ideally, this is just helping you stall a bit. And having such a high health unit with the force trait early in a game is going to enable all that fun force stuff. Force throw, forces with me, it binds all things, any new ones we might get, right? That's really important. Those cards are really strong, especially when you can enable them early, like force throw. Right now, the only other force unit in the game that can enable force throw that early would be Guardian of the Wills. I don't particularly like that card because it's a 2/2. This is a 0/5. Very chunky. You can throw upgrades on this. It holds it. Like put a Jedi lightsaber on this, you got a 3/8, right? It's interesting. I think we haven't seen much synergy specifically in yellow hero yet for the force trait, but there is also Ezra. And then we're going to have to kind of decide if we want to pair that with blue for some of the force stuff or with red for some of the force stuff. But in general, I kind of like this card. I don't think it's like world beater, right? I mean, 0/5, it's going to eat some damage, but if your opponent wants it dead, it can kill it and not really suffer too much for it. But I think there's a lot of potential here. All right. Next up, we've got the Mandalorian's Rifle. This is an upgrade in the starter set for the Mandalorian leader. It says attached to a non-friendly vehicle unit. It gives +3/+0 and has a when played, if the attached unit is the Mandalorian, so that is that leader, he captures an exhausted enemy non-leader unit. So notably, it was already kind of confirmed by the devs that if the leader is defeated, that unit will go back into play in your opponent's control with and it will be exhausted. So this says in the italic text, put the captured card face down under him until he leaves play. I know leaders technically don't leave play when they're defeated, but it was confirmed that that's how that would work. So your opponent will get the unit back. It'll be exhausted when they get it back. Having said that, this is a 3-cost removal event, right? On anything when you have that Mandalorian in play. And it also turns him into a 7/7. That is incredibly powerful. There's a lot to like there. I know it has to capture an exhausted unit, so your opponent could play around that a little bit. But this seems like one of those like on the power rate of like Luke's lightsaber, right? We know that card is really strong on Luke. It's very situational though, because outside of like playing it on Luke, its potential is like really capped. I think this is even further capped. I mean, I don't particularly ever want to play this on something that isn't a Mandalorian. +3/+0 for 3 is just asking to like take it on the chin, right? Like they'll just defeat your unit. It didn't gain any health. Whereas the things like Luke's lightsaber and Vader's saber could sometimes, with the +3/+1 and the fact that they cost 2, be a little more useful on their non-leader counterparts. But I think the upside here is elevated significantly because, you know, this can take out any non-leader unit. And then if you do a good job of keeping Mandalorian in play for a bit, it's basically just hard removal. And next, we got Gideon's Light Cruiser. This is a 8-cost villain-only card. It's a 7/8. It has Overwhelm. When played, if you control Moff Gideon as a leader or a unit, play a villain card that costs 3 or less from your hand or discard pile for free. This is kind of like Home 1 a little bit, right? That also costs 8. It brings back something that costs 3. Although Home 1, when you have more resources, you can bring something bigger. This does let you also play units out of your hand. I think it's interesting. I do think it's a tad bit too slow. I mean, what I really like about Home 1 is not only do you get that immediate effect of bringing a unit into play from your discard pile, but it also gives all your units in play restore. So it can help you kind of stabilize immediately as you get some attacks in that turn and then further on in the future turns. While this, I mean, Overwhelm is nice on a 7/8. I think that's an important ability. It can't just be like chump blocked, like put little sentinels in play to like delay it. But it's hard to play an 8-cost. I mean, this isn't an 8-cost do nothing, but it's an 8-cost do a little bit. And I don't know if it'll be enough, but the more powerful 3-cost villain units we have in the game, the more powerful this will end up becoming. All right. So the last two cards we're going to do are not actually in the starter set. So this one is a common. It's wanted. It costs 0. It's a cunning card. It's an upgrade. It gives +0/+0. You attach it to a unit. That unit has bounty. It's a new keyword. And it says when this unit is defeated or captured, its opponent collects its bounty. In this case, that bounty would be ready to friendly resources. So it's a card that ideally you're playing for 0, and it readies 2 resources. It's going to take some actions in between to accomplish that goal. You're going to have resources already spent, right? You can't, if all your resources are unspent, it doesn't do anything. So it's not ramping in the sense that like a resupply ramps. It ramps similar to a way like the Boba Fett leader ramps, right? Like you play something, you ready some, and you play something else. So you can't play something enormous, but you can play multiple medium-sized things. This one's tough to evaluate for me. 0 to gain 2 resources. So we're giving up card advantage to try to get tempo. We're trying to like deploy extra in one turn. That can be pretty strong. Obviously, I think the issue here is that it's like multiple steps, right? You have to play this card, and then you have to, well, first you have to play something that costs 2 or more, right? So that you have resources to ready after you play this. Then you play it on something. Then you have to have a unit that can defeat that something. Now, if you were trying to set this up for a future turn, your opponent might be able to play around that by like trading their unit off into you before you're able to capitalize on that resource gain. It's going to be interesting to see if we can like create a little bit more of a flood deck where we just like play a bunch of things out, and then that 2 resources, like we're really just trying to dump our hand, gain an early advantage, because obviously this is not a kind of card you want to play in like a control deck where your goal is to like go really long, right? You're losing out on cards when you're doing this. But I think there's definitely some upside here, and we talked about upgrades matter in this set. Even with the Mandalorian, this is a 0-cost way to exhaust something, right? You can exhaust a unit when you play this, maybe even the unit you're planning on killing, prevent some damage. Then you play something, you defeat that unit, you collect your bounty, play another unit. It can lead to some really cool plays. There's also like, I mean, it's a fairy tale, but I think you can like get your Boba leader out on turn 2 with this by playing it on something that has 2 health. You super laser tech on turn 2 with an ambush. You ready your resources. You play a resupply, and then you can get your Boba leader out. I think you probably lose that game even if you do that, because you've just spent 3 cards to just like get your Boba leader out. It could go really poorly for you, but it's cool, so that's interesting. And the last card we got, and this is a legendary, it is the Mandalorian, so it's the unit version of the leader. It is a 5/6 Sentinel in blue hero, so you know, name a more iconic duo, 6-cost blue Sentinels in this game. They're all over the place. Obi-Wan, Bendu, the villain has the 5/5 that the name escapes me right now. It also says that when played, you may heal all damage from a unit that costs 2 or less and give 2 shield tokens for it. So naturally, you can do that to Grogu. Grogu's going to be pretty good at holding a bunch of damage on him. I don't know how impactful that ability is. A 2-cost doesn't often have damage on it because they're usually small. But I mean, you put 2 shields on it, it's going to be basically immortal. So that's definitely interesting. 5/6 Sentinel is a better stat line than Obi-Wan, who's at 4/6. Bendu's a 4/7. We've got the 5/5 in the game on the villain side, the one that gives experience. I think mostly blue wants this effect, wants like a body like this right now. Where it fits in comparison to those other cards, we'll have to kind of see how much the 5 attack matters versus the 4. We'll have to see how relevant this when played ability is. Right now, I don't think highly relevant, but I could see it being very impactful at some point. I mean, even just Grogu getting a couple shields, Grogu is now essentially just removing your opponent's best unit every turn, right? It's got that exhaust ability and never going to be able to defeat it, so it's just going to sit there and like exhaust an enemy unit every turn for eternity. So I think it's pretty cool. It's a legendary, so that's pretty exciting. And yeah, so that's all of them. Kind of did this just like I said, off the cuff. Hope some of this analysis was useful. I'd be very interested to see how it holds up in the future when we get more cards and like more synergies unlock. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribe to the channel. That means a lot to me. And yeah, stay tuned for the next videos. Take care.